change focus now and go to the court. Vodacom forensic officer Pinky Vythilingam has told the court about cell phone tower locations and movements on the night that Senzo Meyiwa was killed. The state claims one of Kelly Khumalo's phones were stolen by intruders who entered her mother's Vosloorus home and fatally shot her then-boyfriend. 5 men are on trial for the 2014 murder, which the state claims is or was a botched robbery. Linda Mnisi joining us in studio right now for a quick look at what we have heard from this trial thus far. Linda, good evening to you. Let's start with the cell phone tower and what it tells us before we get to Kelly Khumalo's runaway phone. Let's start with the towers. What is the forensic expert painting a picture here of?
So essentially, Xoli, she has been painting a picture around where the phones were and where they pinged, particularly on the day that Senzo Meyiwa was killed. And it actually leads me to your next question about the runaway phone. You'll remember that the state is essentially saying that on the night that Senzo Meyiwa was killed, there were intruders who also robbed one of Kelly Khumalo's phones. They took one of Kelly Khumalo's phones, but they also say that the alleged intruders, after the commission or the alleged commission of the crime, they went back to a Vosloorus hostel. Now, leading evidence on the towers of that phone that was stolen, they asked Pinky Vythilingam to tell the court about where that particular phone pinged in the evening of that particular day. Let's take a listen to what they had to say.
Now let us move to a number associated with Kelly Khumalo, ending with Colonel Stein on Exhibit O has already testified that was the runaway phone.
Yes.
Are you able to tell the court the towers this phone picked in the evening of the 26th of October 2014?
On the evening of 26th October at 17:16, the tower parquet was picked up. You would then find GPRS data at 17:26 on the 26th of October. We get sprayed view. At 18:05, we get an undefined. At 19:16, we get sprayed view, and at 21:52, we get Mololeki.
All right, so one of the other things that she was asked was about Senzo Meyiwa's phone. Was there a point where the stolen phone and Senzo Meyiwa pinged at the same location that evening? And what she tells the court essentially is that there was a point where both those phones pinged at the same tower, and she particularly focuses around 7 o'clock. Now, you'll remember that the state alleges that at around 7, 8 o'clock, that's when Senzo Meyiwa was actually killed. They then zoom into the tower locations of Senzo Meyiwa's phone and how long it pinged in that particular location. She's looking at around, 10 to 6, right up until 21:55, just before 10 minutes before 10 o'clock. It then changes its location to clinics. You remember, state witnesses have told the court that after Senzo Meyiwa was shot, he was taken to the hospital where he was later declared dead. Colonel Stein also told the court that Senzo Meyiwa's phone pinged at a tower that was at the hospital. Now, what then happens the following day, according to the state, is that in the morning, calls are made to Kelly Khumalo, and this is after phones were confiscated. The other phones were confiscated. Kelly Khumalo's other phone was confiscated amongst those of the people who were in the house, including Senzo Meyiwa's phone, which was with the police. In the morning, the court hears that a SIM swap is conducted on Senzo Meyiwa's SIM card. This is the SIM card that would have been on the iPhone 5S that is with the police. But before the SIM swap is conducted, a call from David Matebula is made to Kelly Khumalo. The phone
Who's David Matebula?
Well, at this particular point, what the state is saying is just a David Mathebula, which makes a phone call to a number belonging to Kelly Khumalo. Now, the state saying that phone was already with the police. So Pinky Vythilingam telling the court that that particular phone had been off the previous day from around 2 o'clock, right? So that phone, not receiving those calls successfully, there were about 8 calls that were particularly made to that particular cell phone. But let's take a listen to what exactly she had to say, and then we'll take it from there.
Did that number at any stage have any contact with any number associated with Kelly Khumalo?
Yes. 27th October 2014 at 7:32. The number ending called the number ending, which was on voicemail. That duration lasted 6 seconds.
So essentially, there were a number of other calls that were made according to Pinky Vythilingam, and totaling 8. And the phone was off. And she says, Mathebula then, it would seem, left voice messages for Kelly Khumalo. Now, on Senzo's SIM card, what we're hearing in court is that there were about 63 calls that were made after the SIM swap had been done. Remember what the state witness, Colonel Steyn, told the court previously was that the person who would have needed or would have been able to do a SIM swap or request a SIM swap would be somebody that would be close to Senzo and somebody that would have his ID. Mtokosi Sitwala said the person who had Senzo Meyiwa's ID was Kelly Khumalo, and he was shocked that a SIM swap had been conducted. What happened then to that particular SIM card, the new SIM card, is that it was placed in a Nokia, and that Nokia was linked to a number that is owned by David Mathebula. So that phone was linked to a number belonging to David Mathebula. Pinky Vythilingam telling the court that she's unable to tell the court when exactly that number and that handset were linked. But what she has on her records is that the phones actually were linked together. So then saying that 63 calls were then made successfully from that particular phone.
So mapping all this information together now, because the court has focused on this cell phone activity for some time, what is it, or what picture is being painted here? Or are we getting ahead of ourselves?
Well, essentially, Chloe, so far, particularly over the past few days, you'll remember there's just been a focus on Senzo Meyiwa's SIM card and the SIM swap that was conducted at that particular time in the state, using this portion to essentially tell the court what it believes happened around that particular time and when the SIM swap was conducted and how it was conducted and what happened thereafter. But of course, it starts from the day that Senzo Meyiwa was killed, and essentially one of the biggest points from today is that before even a SIM swap was conducted, there was that alleged phone that was stolen that then went to a different location, the towers being mentioned there by Pinky Vythilingam, ending around 10 o'clock at Muleleki. At that time, around that time, is the time when Senzo Meyiwa's phone was pinging at clinics. The allegation that the state is bringing to the court is that there were intruders in the house, and those intruders, amongst other things, also stole a phone.
Very interesting thus far, but we're going to have to get closer to why the state is placing so much emphasis on the cell phone activity and what this ultimately tells us. Of course, right now, we can't get there just yet, but of course, we are allowed to be curious. Linda Mnisi, thank you very much for that information. All right, our reporter watching the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial very closely.